and I think there was a band called, wonderful name, the Brady Bunch Lawnmower Massacre. Were playing, and there was a serious altercation between the Boot Boys and the Brady Bunch Lawnmower Massacre, and there was chairs being thrown. It was like Wild West. So we'd already played our set, so I think the gig had to be called off because it just turned into a free for all. But I'm not
those
sure.
Brady Bunch just can't. Them are the Partridge Family. Too troublesome.
Yeah, can't take them anywhere.
Classic pop culture. It's classic pop culture. Hosted by Steve, Ludwig, and Ludwig. It's classic pop culture. It's classic pop culture. It's classic pop culture.
Thank you, Joe Mandica, Australia's gift to the world of popular music. Joe is the writer, producer, and performer of our pop culture theme song, the one that you just heard. And Joe is a true friend of our show. And speaking of true friends of the show, how are all of you doing? This is your pal and fellow fan of pop culture, Steve Ludwig, welcoming you to another edition of Steve Ludwig's Classic Pop Culture, right here at PlanetLudwig.com. You have landed safely and peacefully at Planet Ludwig. And here we are, show number 177. And on this edition, now, as I was just speaking about Joe Mandica being Australia's gift to the world of pop music, well, our two guests are gifts to the world of Australia punk music. They were at the absolute forefront of the Melbourne pop music scene, and their influence on Australian punk bands that followed is immeasurable. Russell Diggins, also known as Russell Street from his punk days, and Trevor Perrin of the Australian band Zed Cars, and later of Odious Comparison, join us to talk about all the Melbourne punk scene of the late 70s and early 80s, the ups, the downs. And they've brought along very rare songs of theirs to share with us. Some available only from a cassette tape that Russell has in his possession. I can't tell you what a thrill and an honor it was to talk to Russell and Trevor, who are first cousins, by the way. So I think the thing for me to do right now is to shut my punk mouth and present our interview from just a few days ago. Two fabulous guys, Russell Diggins, aka Russell Street, and Trevor Perrin. Enjoy. And here are our wonderful guests returning to the show. Russell Diggins, known to his Zed Car fans as Russell Street, and joining us for the first time, and so happy that he's here, Trevor Perrin, also Zed Cars and Odious Comparison. We'll be talking about both bands in a bit. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks, Steve. Great to see you. Yep.
It's my pleasure. Russ, it's so great to see you again. Trevor, I'm so glad we got to meet. We've been speaking via email, and it's nice to see your face. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, it's great to be a part of it again. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, when I was in school, we used to call gentlemen like yourself primary sources when I used to do my research papers and things. In other words, you guys were there. You were a primary source. And both in your band, Zed Cars was, my goodness, right at the forefront of the Melbourne punk scene. How does that feel to be that kind of important part of Melbourne music scene? Trevor.
you can start off for us.
It's interesting. Talk to my son who's 18, and especially when I showed him my single, the Zed Cars single many years ago, and he didn't even know what a record was. I had to explain. Went on a turntable, put a needle in it. You go, how did that work? There's a little groove in the record, and it got the and yeah. So he's just grown up with USB sticks and CDs. So that whole technology, it's gone. He didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And yeah. So and now he's playing. He's a great keyboard player, great singer, and so I don't know where he got that from.
No, seriously, did you teach him, Trevor?
Look, just as a kid, just constant music all the time in the car, at home, always playing guitar to him, play guitar to put him off to sleep when he was a baby. Similar to how I grew up with my dad being a church organist, pianist, singer, performer. So it just rubs off on the, from one generation to another, I think. Yeah. And yeah. So, but it's amazing how, he's still into the 70s music.
Okay.
And to him, it's all new. And I'm going, oh, that's really old. And he goes,
it's funny. I'm a retired teacher, and I taught 8th grade. So that's about 13 years old. And my kids used to know that I loved the Beatles. Every once in a while, one or two of them would be coming in with a Beatles t-shirt. And then I'd have to look in my grade book and I'd think to myself, okay, this kid needs to pass. He's failing. So he wore his Beatles t-shirt for me today. Yeah, nice. But I'll tell you, it's a good song is a good song.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It does feel, look, a bit unreal now looking back on it. At the time, we didn't really have a perspective on what was happening. I mean, you just went out and did it, and you were part of a whole thing, and it was just all happening. And then down the track, you think, my God, how what did we just do? What did we, what did we achieve, or whatever? So it's that perspective that gives you, you think actually we did do something. And at the time, it didn't seem like we were doing much, I guess, which is other than just expressing ourselves and, having a good time.
So one good thing was we had a lot of young kids come to our gigs and who subsequently formed their own bands and ended up supporting us. And they used to hang around us, and so our influence and the next band coming up, and we were seeing them play. We wow, well done, guys. And so it felt good that we actually inspired some people to do the same thing, with the same ethos, same attitude, and probably.
And you know what else, Trevor? So many of them that you can't even tell how many people you've influenced. Those are the ones who have come back to you and said, "Oh, you guys, made us love music and want to have a band," and that just ripples, down. I mean, the influence that you guys must have had is, oh my gosh, that can never be taken away from you. For as long as, since Zed Cars and Odious Comparison ended, all you've done throughout your lives, both of you, and this will never be taken away from you. And it's always going to be there.
Yeah, it's like passing the torch, and, they carry on with the torch, and so it goes. And, that was a good feeling, having fans getting into bands, playing, and
I want to mention this book, The Ballroom. And Russ, I want to thank you so much for sending me this copy. You told me about it. You sent it to me. I loved it from cover to cover. And if I may, I want to read just a passage about Zed Cars that Dolores San Miguel, we'll speak about her in a second, what she wrote about Zed Cars. Zed Cars had a unique pop punk sound, and I discovered very soon that they also had an army of followers, the Z Girls. And Zed Cars wore black studded leather jackets with either black skinny jeans or black minis. Their teased or spiked coiffures were either bottle blonde or jet black, and they never missed a gig. You're more of your female fans. And it's funny that with that passage, Russ, you just showed us something before we started, which
I did.
you have to please share with the audience.
I will, Steve. Yeah. So, harking back to the Zed Cars' first gig in 1978, I went to, I think you call them thrift shop. We call them an opportunity shop, but I went and bought a second-hand leather jacket from a thrift shop.
Yeah, thrift
and,
shop.
Yeah, and I wore it to the gig, and that was the jacket I wore to the very first Zed Cars show in 1978, and I'll turn around on the back. So another band which came after us, who I had a bit friends with, band called Pressure.
That looks in good shape too, Russell.
It is, yeah, and it's so stiff it stands up by itself. But no, that's wore that on the very first gig, and that was part of our look. We didn't always wear that sort of thing, but one of the things, thinking about it, Trev, one of the things we always wore as a band were black suede desert boots with ripple soles. They were a thing. I don't think you can get them anymore, but we all used to wear those. That was sort of our trademark, if anything, I guess, wasn't it? The black ripple sole desert boot.
Yeah, that was part of the Zed Car uniform.
And a lot of our sort of followers used to wear the same thing. So, yeah.
And the joke was it gave Ants a 50-50 chance.
Yes, with the ripple sole. Yep. So,
well, I want to share, speaking of uniforms and things like that, I want to share with you guys. I just bought these, maybe 2 weeks ago or so. I thought you guys might appreciate them. You see my new
wow, Ramon.
They're clean. That's just the style. It looks like they're all dusty, but they have the Ramones.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Fantastic. That is fantastic. And
yeah,
Trevor, I remember growing up as kids, you were a massive Adidas fan.
Oh yeah. My mouth is watering.
Yeah, very
when
cool.
did they come in? When did they come out?
You know, I was just scrolling through Twitter, and it popped up. You know, these ads that pop up, and I'm terrible with like impulse buying. But I said, man, they look cool. They were like whatever it comes out to, but they were like $39 US dollars.
Oh wow, that's
not
bad at all.
You know, really cool. But
fantastic,
yeah. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, Trevor.
Russell and I went out to see the Ramones when they first toured Australia.
I've never seen them. Wow.
We did. 1983, La Trobe University, yeah.
La Trobe Uni, but it was definitely 1980, wasn't it? Was it 83?
Might have been earlier. You could be right, Trev. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it was earlier, but definitely La Trobe Uni. But yeah.
And oh boy, what a gig!
Yeah, they were
I mean, I've seen tons of videos and things like that on YouTube. I can imagine.
That was the original lineup too. So
yeah.
I had Marky, didn't it? Not Tommy, I think, but
and we walked out of that gig.
Tommy he stayed with them as a manager or
he did,
or something, but he didn't really spend that much time on drums, did he? With the Ramones career, Marky, I think, had the most time as a drummer anyway.
Yeah, I think Tommy on the first two albums, and then Marky took it on from there.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I maybe about 20 minutes from my house now. I'm in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And there's a town called Lyndhurst, and there's a cemetery in Lyndhurst, and that's where Joey is buried.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
And I was with my brother. I said, Bill, you just have to take a picture of me standing by the gravestone. Have some respect. How can you do that? I said, I'm going to the gravestone, so get your camera ready. Now, what year did Zed Cars start off? From when to when were Zed Cars a group?
We first started off in about 1978 on my reckoning, and I think by about 1981 it was pretty much all over. True, is that right? So I think we played two reunion shows in 83 or something, 82, 83, but essentially 78 to 81. But we didn't gig until 79, late 79 perhaps. I'm thinking, but started off Craig Russell, who was bass player of the original Zed Cars, who later joined the Zorros. I was friends with, my sister was friends with Craig's sister at school, and I got to know Craig. He was a lot younger than I was, but I found out he was interested in music, and he had a bunch of schoolmates, and they were just jamming, and said, "Come along, see what we're doing." And I just started, sort of getting involved, and next thing you know, we're writing songs, and sort of took off from there a little bit.
Yeah, Trevor, what happened with the band? It just kind of ran its course, and I know you guys went to the Odious Comparison, but I mean, what caused the end of Zed Cars, would you say?
Our bass player decided to travel overseas. I was going to get sacked from work because I dropped out of my university studies at doing engineering, and I was a trainee, and they were paying me to go to school. And I got the ultimatum: either you start passing some subjects or you're gone. And Russell had a kid.
Yeah, I had my daughter Stacey was about to be born, and I just got a job, which I'm still working at 41 years later. But it was a matter of the band wasn't paying wasn't paying the bills, and
so in other words, life.
Correct. Yeah,
life came in.
Pretty much. Life intervened, and that was that. But we didn't sort of sit down and say this is it, really, did we? I don't think we played that last show in Deakin Uni, the Zed Cars' last stand
in Geelong.
In Geelong, and that sort of wound it up. And I don't know. We sort of just, I think, go, as you said, so many other things happening in people's lives. We just decided that was it for them.
By the way, I want to thank you, Russell, for sending pictures that the audience is going to be seeing throughout this interview. Wow. Do you have a scrapbook, either of you? Or is it just kind of things in a box? And
things in a box. I've got a scrapbook with a couple of things in it, but we didn't. I mentioned to you before, Steve, we didn't really have a manager other than for a short period. We promoted ourselves. We didn't think to take photos of the bands, to be honest. So whatever photos we got, people took them and gave them to us, essentially. So we didn't really. It wasn't part of our thinking to sit down and do promo shots and stuff. So whatever there is, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of stuff, to be honest. But
So we did make a video.
We did.
Yeah. Yes. Where is that?
The very first show we're talking about, Trev?
No, the Happy Bunch of Punks.
We did. It was just a bit of a Super 8 bit of fun. Three of the band members just mucking around at my house and the song film. And we did. You're right. Exactly.
Is that anywhere?
I've got a copy of that, which I shared with Trevor. So
no, I'm just saying that must be great memory to watch that.
It is, 78, 79. I think Trevor, you might have just joined the band.
I just joined the band, and I turned up, and you guys say we're making a Super 8 film. You want to hold the camera?
The new guy holds the camera.
Correct.
I'm going, okay.
Okay. Hey, by the way, how are you guys cousins? How are you related? I know you're
our father, my father and Russell's mother are
siblings. Okay. Gotcha.
Russell's mum's a little bit older than my dad.
Yep, and they're both still going, which is good. So
good. That's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And we used to go away on just let you know, we used to go on family holidays together back in the day. But I think Trev, you might remember, I sort of got you interested in bands like Slade and things, open up a few new areas.
Well, this is what we were talking about, that how you bought that record player to the holiday house, and it had some songs on it that changed my life. I had my first taste of pop rock music, and I've never looked back. And I thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries.
As it was a pretty repressive childhood we had. Listen to Gilbert and Sullivan.
Not Gilbert O'Sullivan, Gilbert and
No, Gilbert and Sullivan.
And a lot of church music, and we weren't really exposed to any pop or rock until Russell exposed us to it, and it certainly changed my life.
No.
So it must have been, Eagle Rock 72, you reckon, Russ?
Yeah, about 72.
72,
Yep. So,
and from
it
that
opened up a
moment,
new world, yeah.
I wanted to be a rock star.
Yeah. My older brother who had the job, he's a couple years older than, year and a half older than I, but he worked at a pharmacy, and so he had extra money. He would buy all the records, and that's how I got my love of rock music. And he would buy the Beatle albums and everything else, and Yeah.
Well,
But,
incredibly, my grandfather bought Beatles singles when they first came out in the early 60s. So he'd been in orchestras, but he loved the Beatles, and not many people of his generation were even remotely interested in the Beatles, but he loved them. So
yeah, he was ahead of his time. It's funny. My dad, he's passed on, but the first time the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show in the U.S. here, they were on 3 weeks in a row, and the first time we had a good-sized TV in the living room, and then a real small one upstairs. My father refused to let girls, those are the Beatles because their hair was so long, girls are not going to be on my TV. And I see him lying in his casket after he passed. His hair was longer than the Beatles was.
There you go.
All
Right.
So there you go. But so funny. We mentioned this book again before, and the author, Dolores San Miguel, she meant a lot to you guys, and actually a lot of the bands, well, all the bands, I guess, pretty much in Melbourne. Do each of you want to kind of share your thoughts on, because Russ, she just recently passed, right, Trevor?
Did you know that, Trev? That she passed. So, I was reflecting on it, over the past few days, and she was just huge for, not only our band, but for all those smaller bands that wouldn't normally get a look in at places. She had three venues running at one stage, and plenty of gigs, and she was always really upfront. I've still got all the slips, torn off bits of paper at the end of the gig where she itemised all the costs, the cost of the PA, the cost of the door staff, and at the very end of the list was what was left for the band, and sometimes it was only $8 or something, but you can't buy a jug of beer and call it quits. But she was really supportive, and she was just massive for the scene and the ballroom. Really, that was Dolores. I mean, there was others involved at different times, but she made it what it was. And they do walking tours of St Kilda now, and they show people the ballroom. This is the famous ballroom where it all happened, and people want to see that. So it's gone down in legend. But no, Dolores, she was really fabulous for the whole scene.
Well, I was going to say, what are your memories, Trevor, of Dolores?
Of Dolores?
Yeah.
Just how she was always sitting at that desk when you walk through. And back then, no underage, no age checks. I can't believe it. And the age of the people getting in, and so a lot of our fans were only 15.
Yeah, you're right.
And still at school, and these days, you wouldn't believe it, because they're so tight on ID and all that. So it was a great time to get in underage.
Do you think the Melbourne scene would have been as big as it was without her?
No.
I don't think so. No, I think she did so much for the scene. There were sort of bands that were going to make it regardless, and I mean there was, some bands that went on to do big things. I know Nick Cave and the Boys Next Door, but even they owed a lot to Dolores and her, what she was able to do. But it was mainly the small bands. She was really gave people a go, which was so important, because you didn't have to be virtuosos, or as long as you get up there and had a had a crack, Dolores would sort of give you a go, and
That's
thank
fantastic.
her enough for what she did for our career. Yep.
Now, as my audience knows, Russell, you were on the show. It was show number 174, actually with your sister Roz's band.
I was, yeah.
Princess Planet with Chris, Roz, and Dave. So, and I asked you then, but for those who may not have seen that show, either one of you, could you explain to those of us who might not know what Zed Cars is, like where you got that name?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So Zed Cars was an English police show in the 1960s, and probably going back a little bit, the original Zed Cars, we were pretty woeful, but I met Rob Griffiths, who was in a band called The Fiction, local Melbourne, sort of early punk band in Melbourne. He later went on to be in Little Murders, but I met him at a party, I think, from memory, and I think one of the guys in his band was going to Teachers College with me, so somehow we knew each other through that. But he said, he found out I had a band. He said, do you want to come and support The Fiction at the Champion Hotel, which was then reputedly the roughest hotel in Melbourne, which we had no idea. So we said, we said, we're pretty ordinary, but we'll give it a go. And we turned up and he said, what's your band called? And we didn't even have a name. So he said, I was going to call my band the Zed Cars. So you're the Zed Cars. So he wrote on a big chalkboard at the front of the pub and said, world premiere, the Zed Cars. And we played. They filmed that show, which I've never seen the footage, but it'll be cringeworthy now, I'm sure. But going back to the underage thing, I was the oldest in the band. I was old enough to get into the pub. I was the only one in the band who was, and the other guys were about 15. They all had to go to school the next day.
So how'd you carry all the beers for them, Russell?
Not easy. They opened up a whole new world from the beers. I think, actually, truth be told, I think two of them actually went home with girls that night. So it was like, it was a dream come true for a young band. But yeah, we were not quite ready. But then I guess, bands practice for years and years, and when you're ever sort of ready, we just got up and did it. And over time, we sort of got better at what we're doing. But I might have mentioned this too, Steve. I think initially, the original Zed Cars, we only did original songs because we weren't competent enough to play covers. So it was easy to write our own songs, and so at least we could play them. So, but yeah, that was part of it.
Now, Zed Car and music fans in general probably know you better, Russell, as Russell Street.
Yep.
Trevor, you didn't go with the stage name, or did you?
Oh, they wanted to call me Jesus, but I said no. I just keep my name.
Yeah.
This, coming from a religious background.
Okay.
And
didn't feel right? You said it's either God or nothing.
wouldn't settle for anything less. Yes. So. Yeah.
What did your parents think of you guys being punk rockers?
Well, let you go, Trev.
Well, as I was saying to you the other day, how I joined the band, coming from a Christian band, going to a punk band. It's quite a dichotomy. And my parents were distraught that I left the church to start off with, and then going to the extreme of playing in a punk band. Weren't happy. I remember
talk about two sides of a coin. Yeah.
Oh man, it's from one extreme to another. I remember my father went out to Craig, who was our bass player, confronted him in the car and was screaming that he'd taken my son away from the church and how dare you. And
yeah,
he was pretty shaken up, and he was a tough kid. And my dad shook him up with that. But anyway, at least my dad got it off his chest. Poor Craig. What's wrong with your dad?
Did it help that you guys were cousins and maybe your parents, Russ? Did your parents maybe get
maybe, although maybe I was seen as a bad influence on you?
I think Russell. Yeah, he wasn't the most popular nephew in the world. But Dad and
he wore leather coats too. What do you expect?
That's right. Yeah. So no, I guess I was lucky my parents didn't really have an issue for what I was doing. I mean, they probably never thought I was musical. That didn't really cross their minds, but maybe I wasn't, particularly musical, but I was able to express myself, and that was sort of, they were happy with that. But my parents had broken up by then anyway. But I remember my dad came to one of our Zed Cars shows. Never got out of him what he thought of it, but at least he came along and had a listen. So
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Trevor, did your parents ever come around to, okay, they accepted, now you're going to be in bands?
Look, I think having their oldest son leaving the church, and we got to a point where we could talk about religion and my point of view. They actually changed themselves to becoming quite liberal in their outlook with Christianity.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that was because of me. They could see that, hey, you're the first person we've ever known who doesn't go to church, and it's our own son, because all their friends were church people, and that's all they associated with. All of a sudden, they had a son who had different ideas, saying maybe, God isn't that real that we thought he was, and maybe, so yeah, they definitely changed after I left the church with their attitude.
Yeah, I would never assume to get in their minds, but they probably saw, Trevor's still the good son we've always known.
He's still got a heart of gold. The fact that he doesn't go to church anymore. And I think it changed them.
Yeah.
And gave them a new perspective on that you can leave the church and still be a nice person.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I think a difficult time was when we had the Zed Cars car fire, and your dad's car burnt.
Yes. Can we talk about that, please?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I'm fairly comfortable talking about it, Trevor. I don't know if that's you. It was a pretty traumatic event, to be fair, back in the
If you guys would rather not talk about it, I certainly understand.
Well, I'm happy to talk about it, but
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we were just driving home after a rehearsal on a Sunday night, and we were following another car with the other band members in it. They ran out of petrol. I was driving my dad's station wagon. There was Russell sitting. We had 4 in the front seat. Can you believe that?
That was the days of the old bench seats in the front of cars, Steve.
Yeah.
You might recall that.
4 guys squished in the front.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we went and got petrol for them. They had an old plastic oil container without a lid. We filled it up with petrol. The petrol leaked out of the top of the container and the guy had his cigarette packet on top of the container to try and keep the petrol from. Anyway, we're driving along on the main road, and he decided to light the petrol on top of his cigarette packet.
Yeah.
Like we were punks, but come on, guys.
Yeah.
That was.
Next thing, the car's on fire. They tried to throw the petrol out the window, but the window was half open, so it bounced back in, splashed us all with petrol. I'm still driving the car. As what would happen, it was right where they'd broken down. They ran out of petrol. So I slammed the car into a fence, and the guy said, just go. So I'm sitting in the front seat with my seatbelt on. The other side of the car's on fire with 3 guys, and I'm just, life flashed before my eyes.
Yeah.
Oh, this is
Same with me. I saw that moment, everything flashed before my eyes.
I can't imagine what went through your minds. Yeah.
Then a calming voice said, hey, just reach down right underneath you. You can undo your seatbelt and get the other guys out. So I thought, oh, okay. So I reached around, undid the seatbelt. Somehow Russell got out without a scratch, without a burn.
I
was burned down the left-hand side of my body and face, and the other guys were really bad. They were.
Yeah.
Oh, heavens. Wow.
So
one guy in particular, Mark, he was in the burns unit for a long, long time. A lot of that money from the benefit went to Mark and his family, but he was never quite the same after that. Very, very scarred. He went back and was able to be part of bands, which was great, but he passed some years ago, heart troubles, whether that was related to things. But going back, sorry, Trev, go back to where we left off.
Yeah, so we all got thrown in the back of an ambulance and off the hospital. My dad came and picked me up from the hospital, and I'm thinking, oh, geez, I've just burned his car.
Yeah.
And I said, Dad, I'm going to go back to the church. And he's going, oh, thank you, God,
Right.
Anyway, the next day, the minister was walking up the driveway to see me from the church to have a talk to me. And at the same time, Russell turned up with our mates to come and see how I was. And he was wearing a VB t-shirt. And so I had the choice. Do I go to the minister or I go and jump in the car with Russell?
Let me guess.
Yeah, okay, it was like a crossroads moment. And VB is a beer brand, Victoria Bitter. So
yeah. I'll never forget that VB t-shirt. And I just walked straight past the minister and said, oh, it's good to see you, Mum and Dad are inside. I got to go. And I jumped in the car and run.
So no, it was pretty traumatic stuff, and I guess it was life-changing in a lot of ways, particularly for the guys who were badly burnt.
Especially like at that age, at least I remember, we felt invincible.
Yeah,
But my heavens, I can imagine at your age thinking this is it. How horrific that must have been.
Yeah, you face death in that moment. It was pretty scary.
We just realised how fragile life was, take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it definitely changed our outlook on life, for sure.
It's funny. I'm sorry, I was going to say, I have a cousin. I'm maybe a year and a half older than he, and he's a priest now for many years, going on almost 45 years. He's been a priest. And we always kid because I tell him, John, where you're going when it's all over is nowhere near where I'm going. And he said, no, he said, we're going to be together one way or the other. He said, I might be with you or you might be with me. But
make it happen.
Funny how, how you can be, like I said, different sides of the coin, but your people are people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I guess the good thing for our point of view, a lot of the other bands sort of rallied round, and
yes,
the benefit came up pretty quickly. I don't know whose idea it was exactly, but bands on that gig, they provided the service for free.
Was that quite common for bands to look out for each other if something happened or equipment was stolen or anything? Were you always kind of like one big happy family, not happy, but one big family that looked out for each other?
I think it was a sense of community. We didn't know all
Yeah,
the bands.
that's what I was thinking.
But
Trying to say.
I don't know what's your take on that, Trev?
Oh, absolutely. Because I always made a point of watching the support acts, and and seeing the guys playing before us and getting to know them, and so definitely we sort of kept in touch with the other guys playing, and even if they were gigging, we'd go and see them. We're always going to see other bands playing and talking to them after the gigs and that. So we were basically out every night of the week going to gigs if we weren't playing.
Yeah.
So
Was it a friendly competition among bands? There wasn't
absolutely.
too much like, we're better than you or
No, none of that, Steve. No, it was all
you all
pretty
pulled for each other.
We're all struggling to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're all in the same boat, right? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Mhm.
And now we had a lot of friends, and there's a lot of people moved from band to band, and it was no big deal. I mean, Craig Russell was sort of poached, I guess, by the Zorros, who were sort of good friends of ours, but there wasn't any acrimony about that. I think it was.
Yeah. So I take the blame for Craig leaving Zed Cars. I take all the blame.
Did he go to the Zorros? If I
Went to the Zorros, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I wrote a
Why do
song
you take the blame, Trevor?
I wrote a song and made a demo on a cassette and played it to Craig in my car, and it had some Beatles sort of falsetto bits in it. And Craig just said, "Oh, for God's sake, is this the way the Z Cars are going? I'm out of here." And he joined the Zorros. And I take full responsibility.
Yeah.
Well,
Unashamedly.
I think they've been courting him anyway, from what I gather. I think they were keen to have him. He had the look. He was a great bass player. He had the attitude. Fortunately, he's no longer with us, Craig, and he had some mental health issues over his life as well, which was very, very tragic. But very talented guy. Yeah.
I always sort
Go right ahead.
I always had a comparison between John Lennon and Craig when I first met him, how he could walk into a room and just everybody, when someone, he had that charisma.
He had that it factor, they say, or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. And so you'd either love him or you'd hate him. It's one of those sort of guys. Everybody had an opinion about him, and once you'd met him, you didn't forget him.
He was a presence.
And,
yeah.
So
was it common for band members to go from one band to another within the Melbourne community? Or no, not really.
Yeah, I would say so. There was a fair bit of
I think when bands broke up, there'd be a bit of headhunting going around from ex-members of bands if they'd broken up and you were looking for because you're looking for a drummer and there was a band broken up and they had drummers out of work, you could pick them up, and there was a bit of that going on.
Did either of you guys ever sit in for another member of another band one night if maybe they couldn't make it to a gig, or did that ever happen?
I don't think I ever did.
Well, I remember Nick from the Zorros came up and sang with us.
Yeah.
And that was a really weird experience.
Yeah, he sang one of our songs. He sang one of his,
Yeah, he was 6'8"
He's
or
a big
guy. And so a bit of that went on. A bit of fun with the bands. People get up and stuff. But
quite often people were in multiple bands at the same time, so there was a lot of that going on. Simon Smith, our drummer from sort of latter version of the Zed Cars, he was in the Shots. He was in a couple of bands, and he'd come from the Virgins. In fact, I worked out we had a lot to do with a band called the Virgins. It was sort of a bit beyond the pale, even by Melbourne punk standards. They were banned from a lot of venues, and they were quite confrontational, and their lyrics were way out there. But I think 3 of the 4 members of the Virgins ended up in the Zed Cars the next time. So
I want to listen to some of the Zed Cars songs, but before that, may I ask each of you about your writing methods? Is it music first, lyrics first, or a little bit of each? Depends. How about you, Trevor? You want to go first when you write a song?
Well, Russell was amazing. He had a book full of lyrics, and I'd go to Russell with a song and a tune, and he'd flip through the book, and he'd go, right, this is the lyrics for this song. I go, oh my God, and it fitted perfectly. And so how good was that to be to write the music and have somebody who could had so many lyrics all pre-written,
Right.
beforehand. They're all political. They're all sort of really in-depth lyrics, not just sort of "I love you, you love me."
Yeah.
Because they're the lyrics I was writing.
Yep.
And
We all need romantic songs as well, Trevor,
We do, yeah.
to get through those times.
I'm sure you still got that book, Russ. Have you?
I do. I've still got the book. And
Yeah.
you're quite right. I operated by writing the lyric first and then hear music and then sort of make it sort of work to the music, make the lyric work to the music. But don't sell yourself short there, Trevor. You wrote a couple of great lyrics as well. I'm thinking of a song called People Look at Me. Do you remember that song? We used to do.
The reggae song.
No, not the reggae song. No, it was People Look at Me. You'd written a lyric and it was about breakup, but sort of a bit of acrimony around a breakup, and people look at me and say, "Why is she gone away?" I don't know if you recall that, but So we made it work, but generally it was trying to fit pre-written lyrics to a tune. Yeah.
I remember seeing an interview with Eminem on 60 Minutes once, and he has like 2 or 3 huge shoeboxes with just phrases. And the way he writes most of his songs is he'll look through it, he'll take this phrase from this one, see if it works together. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. And he says, you just got to get a feel for what works.
Yeah.
You guys felt the same thing, right?
That was David Bowie did that with.
Did Bowie do that as well?
Yeah, he cut out of newspapers. Just cut out random lines out of newspapers.
Oh, okay.
And I've got a feeling John Lennon might have done something similar.
Yeah.
Was it Day in the Life, or was it I'm the Walrus? One of those. It was sort of random.
That
random
sounds like,
phrases.
that sounds right. Well, look, how about if we listen to Is There Someone Out There? And then right after that, Girls Aren't Just Girls. This is your single, right, guys?
That's it. Yep. Sort of a double A side. I guess we don't think we ever sort of nominate one over the other, but I like them both anyway. So.
And, I actually wrote it down before we listened to it, audience. On August 8th, 1980, Zed Cars, along with your fellow bands, Little Murders, Wreck Jets, and Paradise, and the Shots, I'm sorry, you played a gig at the Paradise Lounge, and it was kind of like a record, you sold your records for the first time there. Have I got that story anywhere?
Oh, you're right. No, that is correct. Because we're all on a Go-Go Records. So Bruce Milne, the local Melbourne guy, set up his own record label. Once again, he had faith in what we were doing. We recorded or paid for our recording ourselves, took it to Bruce, he put it out. And as those other bands you mentioned there too, Steve, and all came out around the same time. And there was a big sort of launch, and I think we just sold a few records on the night. But it was a great night.
How about if we listen to both songs right now? Everybody, the Zed Cars.
Well, the summer was against me, or am I full of hate? I try so hard to get out, but I can't seem to relate. Is there someone out there? Please let it show. Do you feel like I do? I really have to know. I said, "Donna, you're wasting my time." She said to me, "I'm sick of your line." I kicked her out, but she wouldn't go. She laughed and she told me what I didn't know. Now I understand that girls are just girls. I hope you realize they're the best in the world. She said she liked girls much more than me. I was just part of her fantasy. I couldn't care if she walked at the door. I just wanted to see her no more. Now I understand that girls are just girls. I hope you realize they're the best in the world. She said she liked girls much more than me. I was just part of her fantasy. I couldn't care if she walked in the door. I just wanted to see her no more. Now I understand that girls are just girls. I hope you realize they're the best in the world. Now I understand that girls are just girls. I hope you realize they're the best in the world.
Is There Someone Out There? And Girls Aren't Just Girls, by Zed Cars. Did you guys ever have an idea of not redoing, but so many songs that you didn't get a chance to record? I know, we're all a bit older now, but do you ever think like, let's just lay down some more of these tracks that we used to play at the gigs? That ever come into your thinking?
Well, Russell and I have been separated by distance for a long time. So I think after Zed Cars, I moved over to Perth, the other side of Australia, and then
That's
played in
tough.
bands.
Yeah.
Played in bands in Perth, then moved to Queensland, played in bands in Queensland. And so we've had the tyranny of distance between us to actually,
Yeah.
to get down and do some recording. But it's never too late.
No, you're right.
That's
We
true.
did have a-
Especially now,
Hmm.
you could kind of do it across the lines like this. Well, listen to me, like I know what I'm talking about. But come on, guys, have it ready, will you? Next week I want to hear something.
Yeah, next time.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Although we did have a crack after Odious Comparison. We had a thing going called the Grail Experience for a while. We wrote some original material for that band. I never played live with you guys, but then you changed your name, I think, at that point. But we did write some material around then, from memory. It'd be 83, 84, something like that.
Now, Russell, the last time I spoke with you, I think I kept calling this next song I want to play Barbie Girl by mistake instead of Barbie Doll. I don't know how many times you corrected me.
No,
But
not
the
to be
song-
confused with Barbie Doll.
But the song Barbie Doll, what can you, either or both of you, what can you tell me about that song?
I think that might have been one I wrote. I don't know. You might have had a hand in the music. on that one.
Yeah. We, I think you wrote it, and we sort of just touched it up a bit, and
Yeah.
bit of
That's right. I remember.
because it's a.
I'm sorry, Trevor. Go ahead. I stepped on.
Yeah, I think we got together and worked out an arrangement, and yeah.
If I recall, Russell, you were also saying that last time that it's kind of about a statement on plastic people. I hate to keep using these
Yeah.
the air quotes,
That was
but
the
like,
premise of
like
the
people can be
song.
plastic and
Yeah. And I think that was the basic premise of the song. And I think for mine, that was probably, if we had a second single, that might have been the choice there. I think that was, in the back of my mind. But I did remember writing the lyric in the bath. I remember that much back in the day. But yeah, I think it was just I think that was a little bit about maybe the insincerity of some folks or people who dismiss other people, maybe think they're better than other folks a little bit. And, I think that was sort of pretty much what it was about.
How about if we listen to Barbie Doll right now?
Sounds
Here we
good.
go. Once again, Zed Cars, everyone.
This one's for you. Barbie Doll dedicated to the bar lady. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Barbie Doll by Zed Cars. And as we mentioned a little while ago, all good things end, it seems. Zed Cars finished their initial time together, and Odious Comparison came out of that. Or Russell, you joined Odious Comparison.
That's
Maybe
right.
you
So
can
I
take us
joined,
through it. Yeah, why don't you take, if you don't mind, taking us through that.
All right.
They were an established band, right?
That's right. Yep. So the last bass player for the Zed Cars was Mick Mordaunt, who joined us and played one of our best lineups in my view. And Mick had been invited to join this band Odious Comparison. I'm not sure how he knew the guys, and they had a singer who was having some issues, I guess, at the time. He couldn't, had some drinking issues and other things, but they were looking for a new singer, a new direction. So Mick said, they said to me, come along and have a listen, see what you think. And I've been there 5 minutes, and I was at the microphone starting to sing the songs, and that was it. I was in. Great band. I love what they're doing. They'd already written the songs. I didn't have any input at that stage into the music side of it, but I love the songs they were doing. So that went along for a while. They had a lineup change, and we changed bass player. We got a guy like Paul Bryant, who was in another band, punk band, Corporate Body. He came on board. So we put together a demo, which I believe you're going to play some tracks soon.
Yes.
There, Steve. That Paul Bryant played bass on that demo. But once again, Paul moved on to other bands, and like we thought we need a bass player. Trev, you were primarily a guitar player, but you're multi-talented. You're able to, pick up the bass, and you came in at that stage, probably towards the end of Odious, but we still had a sort of a pretty good period there.
Trevor, I'm sorry, Russell. Trevor, about how long after Russell joined Odious Comparison did you join? Was it a few months, a few weeks? When you
it was probably about 6 months. What do you reckon, Russ?
Okay.
Probably. I joined Odious Comparison in 81, and I think you came in about 80. What about as late as early 83?
Oh, more than 6 months.
Because I think the demo was recorded in 83, so that was early 83 from memory. So we'd been going a little while. We had a number of gigs, and once again, Dolores was giving us gigs, a lot of gigs at the Ballroom, which was great. We ended up supporting, I don't know why, we always said we'd be supporting a band called the Boot Boys. It was sort of I guess, an oi band, a sort of a skinhead sort of band. We often got put as their support act, which was, a different sort of audience that we'd been used to. But it was a gig. So we played a number of shows there. And I think we were rehearsing at a place called Brunswick. It was costing us an absolute fortune to rehearse there. And we just weren't getting the gigs to sort of cover the cost of rehearsal even. So that ultimately sort of was the undoing of the band, I suppose. But I really like what we're doing out of this comparison. We started to write some songs towards the end of the band too. So yeah.
Russell, I don't know why I'm thinking this negative thought, but did your voice ever fail you? Did you ever have to go to a gig and, oh man, I haven't got it tonight?
There were times, but I sort of just sort of play it on through, I guess, largely. But
punk.
Sometimes a lot of the songs lent themselves to, pretty heavy sort of almost screaming and at times with various songs. And that would take its toll on your voice. So I always finish the show with not much left in the bank.
Trevor, did you sing as well, Trevor?
Well, yeah, we were sort of pretty radical for a punk band because we actually did harmonies.
Yeah.
Which was, and I remember when I joined Zed Cars and I said, oh, maybe we do a harmony here. And they go, we are doing harmony. And I said, no, you're not. You're singing in unison. That's not a harmony. Yeah. Oh, yes. So I had to teach the guys the difference between singing in unison and singing doing a harmony. So so on our single, both songs we do full on harmonies, and there weren't many bands. Maybe it wasn't the punk ethos to be doing harmonies.
I can't think of any. Maybe the Ramones, not even the Ramones. I can't think of any bands that did any harmonies.
And
again, so you guys are at the forefront of it. Yeah,
that sort of set us apart from the other punk bands. I think because, like Russell and I, our voices blended pretty well together on the harmonies.
Yeah,
and I guess it was something different than the norm. And again, Beatles influence, and we even covered the Beatles.
Really,
we did indeed. Hard Day's Night was.
We did Hard Day's Night.
Yeah,
and then what do you know? Other punk bands started covering Beatles songs. The Zorros did Help.
They did, yes. That's right.
and some of you even wore Beatle T-shirts, as I saw in the picture, Trevor.
Yeah, Odious Comparison. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now I am a layperson when it comes to music, performing or singing. Are harmonies hard to learn?
Oh, absolutely. It's
I would imagine. Yeah. What's the toughest thing? Just getting that blend? Can you put it in layman's terms?
So, you know, in musical terms, you're picking a third or a fifth in the chord over the melody. And yeah, so it's, you can do 3-part harmonies to, you know, 4-part harmonies.
Mm-hmm.
But it just, you know, brings out the song, brings out the melody if you've got that added layer with it. And the perfect harmonies when you don't notice it.
Yeah.
So, and you listen really carefully. Oh my God, I've never heard. There's a harmony sung along in that chorus bit. I've never heard it before, and it just blends in so well. And I think that's how we got away with it. Just coming up to the mic, and yeah, the audience didn't walk out going, "Oh, you're a punk band. You sang harmonies. We're leaving."
Well,
it's in the work. Yeah.
I'm not going out on a limb here, but harmonies should not be taken lightly. In other words, they're not as easy as they may sound to the.
Oh no, not
yeah.
And it is really the issue. Yeah, really.
Yeah,
So
particularly
here's what I
on
thought.
stage.
I'm sorry, Russ. I just stepped on what you were
No,
saying.
you're right. I was just going to say a lot harder on stage because you can't always hear what's going on or what the other person's singing. Or like in a recording studio, yeah, you've got the luxury of hearing all that, but on stage it's a little bit trickier. Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit? You know what I decided? I was trying to think of which of these Odious Comparison songs should I play? There are 5 on this demo that you sent me, and I just like listening to them all. So I mean, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to just play 5 back to back, and people that are listening here, you know, you'll see right on the screen the name of the song and all. Then we can talk about them when we come back. How about if I just go through each title and you give us a little thumbnail, what you remember about
Yeah,
I know, Trevor, you weren't with the band at this time, or at least recording. Yep. So we're gonna throw it all on Russell, and he's gonna carry the load on these anyway.
Will do. Yeah, no worries.
All right. So Odious Comparison. How about that song?
Yep. Okay. As you say, that's sort of named after the band. I didn't write the lyric on any of these songs, but and they were sort of fully formed when I came, but they did change over time. So the original when I joined Odious Comparison, we had a second guitarist. He gave a really nice sort of sound, and then we went with the one guitarist, Harry Lindsay, who was a great player, but I think Harry had largely written the music and a lot of the lyrics as well. So yeah, I think when I joined the band, I had to ask what an Odious Comparison was, but it's like an unfavourable comparison.
Yeah,
I guess Steve, you know, you could probably tell better than I could what an Odious Comparison is. But
I'll tell you, punk band names are the best. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, well, Trevor, did you play any of these songs on stage? However,
Yes, we did. Yeah.
yeah, you personally played the songs. So. Yeah, on stage.
Comparison,
boom pop, probably quite relevant at the moment. It's about a nuclear holocaust essentially, and just that moment when it all happens. It's all going off, and that's this sort of lyric sort of captures that bit of wonderment, I suppose. What the hell? Fizz, head explodes, fizz boom pop. It's just it's a little bit it's out there, but it's to do with the nuclear exchange, which a lot of the band lyrics, a lot of the band lyrics were sort of along those lines. They had that sort of I guess we were looking at the early 80s. That was quite a time of uncertainty around nuclear weapons and what have you. And some things never change, I guess. Still, interesting song. I never quite knew what that was about, to be honest. I love singing it. Wind is blowing hard tonight, scattering me left and right. I think it's just an evocative sort of song of, I love the lyric, but it doesn't really. I couldn't tell you exactly what the motivation was behind that one.
I've read interviews when John Lennon said it. If words just sound good together, sometimes I put them. They don't make sense otherwise, but they just sound like they go together.
Exactly. And it's just nice sounding lyrics.
Songs. Yeah.
And it goes with the music. It's just really nice.
Wind is blowing hard tonight.
General's Hill. That was a sort
General's
of
Hill,
railing
yeah.
against the sort of military commanders who sort of call the shots from afar, but they never prepared to go and put their own life on the line, I suppose. So that was a bit of commentary on those who sort of manipulate the scene from behind the scenes, I suppose, but never actually get involved. So the General's Hill was sort of a metaphor for where they're all sort of watching the battle unfold. So that was a nice sort of anti-war sort of sentiment.
Yeah.
You wanna be the man who gives the order. You screw the soldiers and what to give. Stand up on your hill and watch them die. Fighting for your medal, but then ask me why. You don't wanna fight, but you're always best in line. I say that I live my life on the line. You cry your face when there's 10 men left. You cry the truth when there's no one left. You were there with the end and you were also in Korea. Be there in 3, still standing on your hill. You don't wanna fight, but you're always best in line. Say that I lay my life on the line. You don't wanna fight, but you're always best in line. Say that I lay my life on the line.
Sadistic, yeah. Once again, that was an interesting one. I think there was a bit of a relationship going wrong or something, and just sort of unfolded in the lyric about people weren't happy with the situation, and a little bit about recreational drug use and all sorts of things in the mix there too. But yeah, it was often misheard, that lyric, when I sang it, and I won't repeat what people thought I was singing, but it wasn't sadistic anyway. So
Right.
I had to explain what I was actually singing a few times, but people thought I was singing something else altogether. But it was a good song to sing. I liked that one. I finished at a real sort of held the note for a fair bit at the end there,
Yes.
which I really enjoyed doing that. That was a nice.
You mentioned to me in an email, Russell, that these songs were on a cassette, because they
Yes.
sounded fine to me.
Okay, yeah, well, we did the demo. I don't know who's got the original tapes, but we all ran off a copy of the demo on cassette, which is all I have. So from cassette to computer, and probably loses a little bit in translation, but ultimately, yeah, the sound's there. So yeah, I think, and a bit like the Zed Cars trip too. Our demo, our single, the master tape for our single. I don't know who's got that. It was reissued in 2020. Guy in Canada contacted me and said, "I'd really like to put out. Is there someone out there? Girls aren't just girls." Again, he said,
I meant to bring that up, Russell. Yeah.
Which was out of the blue. He'd been trying to track me down for 18 months or something, and I said, "Yeah, for sure, happy to do that." But we didn't have a demo. He said, "Just send me a clean copy of the single, and I can make a reissue off that." And there it is.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trev. That's the one. And
that's worth a few bucks, I would imagine.
I think the original, from the original, I think it's up there in the hundreds of dollars. But it was nice they reissued it so everyone could sort of, who wanted to get a hold of a copy could do so, and they sold those out, which was really, really nice. So when brought the band back to life in a lot of ways too. Yeah.
And I remember when we spoke the last time, Russell, that the band Zed Cars, you didn't think much of the song or the single, but you just say, we sounded like crap, or some, I forget exactly what it was, but those are two great punk songs.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. I think at the time we probably we got our reviews of the band weren't great, and which didn't worry us. We sort of wore that like a badge of honor, I suppose, in a lot of ways. The single got reviewed in Melbourne or Australian music paper as just the worst guitar sound ever put on record, and we ran with that. We're happy with that. And
as long as they spelled your names right.
Yeah, well, yes, that's right.
Isn't that the old? What do you think of the songs, Trevor? I'm sorry, Russell. Again,
no, please, yeah.
No, Trevor, what did you think of the single?
Oh, look, we had a day to record 2 songs, but we lost half a day because the drummer didn't turn up. So by the time he turned up, we're under so much pressure to record them, mix them, and get out of the studio. It was so rushed. And also they couldn't shoot my guitar. So somebody had to race off and get another guitar for me. And it was just, but
other than that, it was smooth.
Oh, yeah, it was a great session. Yeah. Plus, we'd never been in a studio before. Okay, you got time to do 2 takes. Okay, first take. Okay, next second take. That'll do. So listening back to it,
I love them. I love the songs. I really do.
I can hear so many mistakes listening back to, in my guitar playing, mistake. But we cut it and we got away with it. So it is what it is.
Yeah,
and there's probably more mistakes on the early Beatles records and on.
Oh, sure, yeah. And well, especially with punk, you don't want everything perfect anyway.
You're right. Yeah. And I recall we did it. It was an 8-track, and we trying to work out what to put on the various tracks. But I had never thought of it before. They said, "Oh, do you want to double track your vocals?" And I said, "What's that?" And they said, "Well, sing exactly what you sang the first time. Sing it again, and if you sing it pretty close, it'll sound full of sound." So
and Russell said, "Oh, harmony."
No, well, this wasn't harmony. This was just trying to replicate exactly what you sang on the first take. And I was pretty happy with myself that I'd actually managed to do pretty much what I did on the first take. So
if you hadn't told me that, I wouldn't have picked that.
No, well, there you go.
It's pretty spot on. Yeah.
I mentioned earlier how you two gentlemen are really primary sources. What are some of the other bands in the Melbourne punk scene that you can, even if you just want to say the names of the bands or just a little thumbnail about each? Like I said, I love so many of the names. One of my favorite band names is Olympic Sideburns, I think.
Olympic Sideburns. Well, there you go. And I can tell you that Paul Bryant, who played on the demo tape for Odious Comparison, left Odious Comparison to join Olympic Sideburns. So that was his next band. But he'd been in. Sorry, go on, Trip.
Dresden War Crimes.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. What a great name.
Yeah.
Dresden War Crimes.
Yeah,
Dresden
that was
War
it.
Crimes.
That is
Yeah.
a great name.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And
Well,
so many.
what was Nick Cave in? Which band was Nick Cave in again?
He was in the
Is that
Boys
Little
Next
Murders?
Door, and
Oh,
the Boys
okay.
Next Door sort of morphed into the Birthday Party, and then Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. But started off as the Boys Next Door, and I used to see them all the time. I guess they were quite an influence. But probably the local band that influenced me the most was a band called News, NEWS. They were very political, but they were sort of also had a sort of playful power punk sort of sound, which I think influenced me a lot. They were most described as a cross between the Ramones and the Clash, and they played political demos. They played, they didn't play the mainstream venues, and I was sort of really loved what they brought. But other bands, there was a place called Bernhardt's, which was like an underground sort of club. There was pubs and there was venues and there was all the things Dolores was running. But going back another step, there was a club called Bernhardt's, which was actually a gay club, but they allowed the punks on Tuesday night to run gigs there. It was sort of like everyone sort of felt like outcasts, I suppose, and it was pretty accommodating, and saw a lot of great bands there. We never got to play there, but
you did write a song about.
We wrote a song, Bernhardt's. We did, yeah, which about the closure. They closed it down, and it was sort of a little devastating. So I wrote a song about it because I really enjoyed that experience. But once again, the guys in the original Zed Cars, they were only 15, but dragged them along to that place, and their eyes were like on stalks what they were seeing.
Yeah. Would you say between Odious Comparison and Zed Cars, was one or the other more hardcore punk, or were they both pretty much on that equal level?
I'd say Zed Cars, it was the speed. The songs are played so fast. And I was just saying to Russell the other day, my first gig with Zed Cars, we played the song so fast that we finished our set, we were still halfway through. So we had to play the whole set again. We're so nervous.
It was fast, and that was sort of our trademark. We had a great drummer, Simon Smith, who'd been in the Virgins, really could keep the beat going at an incredible clip, and then we just played everything really.
Why is that? Because of the adrenaline rush you get from being on stage, or did you try to play it faster than you rehearsed it, or did it just happen? Or do you even know why you play faster?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it sort of happened in a way. Not every song was fast. It was slower.
Just organically, it just happens. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes a song can sound a bit like a dirge if it's not. A song sort of picks up its own rhythm to some extent. I think there were songs with slower songs, but I felt our better songs were sort of the faster numbers, to be honest. But I'm not sure about you, Trev.
Yeah, I didn't think we rehearsed that much anyway.
No, we didn't. We were notorious for not rehearsing. You're right. Getting on stage was our rehearsal. So.
You didn't like to use the R word, huh?
No, not at all. Whereas in Odious Comparison, we rehearsed and didn't get the gigs. But that was probably a heavier sound overall. It was a bit.
I think we were playing too much to have time to rehearse.
Yeah, we probably were. We were getting a lot of gigs, and we just you're right.
Yeah. What in a typical week? How many nights would you play?
So up to 5 gigs a week, I'd say. Because
and go to school during the day?
Well,
work or
work, and for me, back in
that's
the day,
right. Yeah, you guys were out of elementary school age. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it was sort of peaks and troughs. Sometimes you get a lot of gigs, and then it sort of wouldn't get them for a while. It was sort of, but yeah, we did get a lot of gigs. Particularly Dolores was always sending gigs our way, which was great, and we often got paired with the Zorros. So she liked I think she mentioned she likes the 2 Zeds. And we sort of had a lot in common, and we had a bit of a camaraderie happening there too. So we played a lot of gigs with the Zorros. Yeah.
What were some of the clubs? We'll start with Trevor that stick out in your mind that you guys played in, or even if you didn't play in, they're just clubs that punk bands played in.
Well, Russell mentioned it before, the Champion Hotel. One of the roughest pubs in Melbourne. What was the joke, Russ, about the transvestite Aboriginal?
And At the first Zed Cars gig, there was some sort of altercation in the crowd, and somebody pulled a knife, and it was I think a week later that person was killed or something. I
Oh my
heard.
heavens, I'm laughing, but it was serious.
Yeah, well, that's anecdotal. I don't know if that I didn't. Yeah, somebody mentioned that, but so it was. Yeah, there was times at gigs when it got a little bit depending on the venue, but mostly was fine. But
Did you guys ever fear for your lives? Or I being dramatic?
Well, Russell probably remembers this when our ex-drummer got on stage to stab me.
Yes.
Remember that,
yes.
Russell, at the Crystal Ballroom?
Yes, that's
What happened?
not clearly, but yeah, you brought it back. I do recall that. Yeah.
I don't remember it because I was so immersed in my playing, and there was a ruckus on stage. People had jumped the stage to drag this guy off. Turned out it was our ex-drummer. Jumped on the stage with a knife, and I'm going, I missed the whole thing.
Oh my heavens! Yeah, it's probably better you did.
I was
Trevor,
too into what I was doing to worry about people on stage and what was going on.
Yeah.
And what they just, from what you remember, they just grabbed him and wrestled him to the ground. And I guess
You'd have to ask Russ because I just got told about it after the gig.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I was very much in the, that sort of immersed in what we were doing. But I do recall there was a ruckus, and somebody was removed from the stage. I had a feeling it was a hammer, though, not a knife. But I'm not
A hammer,
sure.
not a knife.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah, okay.
I think that could still do the job.
Still
I
did the
feel
job,
better.
but,
I feel better now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
so getting
yeah.
hammered to death
Yeah.
on stage. Yeah.
But I never felt particularly.
You didn't feel like, oh shit, I'm gonna get killed tonight. You never felt that, right?
Well, not really. There was a gig with Odious Comparison. I'm not sure if you're in the band at this stage, Trev. But, we played at the Duke of York Hotel. And I think it might have been the Boot Boys again, the sort of the Oi band, and I think there was a band called, wonderful name, the Brady Bunch Lawnmower Massacre. Were playing, and there was a serious altercation between the Boot Boys and the Brady Bunch Lawnmower Massacre, and there was chairs being thrown. It was like Wild West. So we'd already played our set, so I think the gig had to be called off because it just turned into a free for all. But I'm not sure.
Those Brady Bunch just can't. Them are the Partridge Family. Too troublesome.
Can't take them anywhere.
I remember they borrowed my bass amp. They didn't have a bass amp, and during the fight, they pushed the bass player who went backwards and pushed over my bass amp. But I was borrowing that bass amp off a friend of mine. I'm going, oh no.
Holy smokes!
So I'm diving to pick up my bass amp. Forget about the fight. Save the bass amp. I've got to take it back in one piece.
Don't spill the beer. That's another one.
Don't spill the beer, yeah. But that was the exception rather than the rule. Most gigs, people just got into it, and it was all good natured stuff. Yeah.
If I can, I want to go back to this book again. This really marvelous book, and not that you ever want to paint such a broad stroke, but was there a drug scene to be worried about with certain factions in I guess it's all punk music, but in your case, is in the Melbourne punk scene, was drugs a problem with some people? I
would say yes. It got into the scene and it became a bit of a problem for a lot of folks. And I knew a lot of people who didn't make it through the scene because of various drug issues, etc. And I think we've all had. Well, we had a couple of. Yeah, I had a couple of years that I'd rather forget too, but in that regard. But I think overall it got into the scene, and I think heroin sort of became a bit of a thing for a lot of the in the scene for a while.
It's making a comeback. I don't mean that in a good way, but I mean heroin seems to be another drug of choice again nowadays.
Yeah. And barbiturates were the other big one. That became a part of the scene. So but the usual sort of drinking culture in pubs, people a lot
But I in many walks of life, unfortunately, and so I don't want to paint the picture like, oh, it's punk and they were more abusive of drugs or whatever, but that was a problem.
I would say so, but
But as a band, I thought we were, from playing in bands years later after Zed Cars, I thought we were pretty clean.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think
So
were
we
by now.
played straight. We never got up on stage drunk or stoned or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Again, I'm just a layperson, but I can't imagine playing totally blitzed out on stage.
some people
Yeah,
can't
we
play
get such
without
a-
it.
Yeah, but you get such a buzz from just playing. I mean, that's enough for
Mhm.
for us anyway. I think that was a thing. But
Yeah.
So,
Oh, to a little happier subject here. Now, punk itself has subgenres, of course. Hardcore. You have pop punk, or punk pop, country punk, even. Did Melbourne have a lot of these subgenres in the punk scene, or was there one that overrode the others? I don't even know if I'm making myself clear.
I know what you mean, Steve. And I think it was a bit. There was a lot of variety. There was a lot of art school guys that had been to art school, and I think that informed a lot of what they were doing and a lot of the bands. That was certainly part of it. There was probably more. I think we were a bit more down to earth, come out of a different sort of environment, and perhaps there was sort of north of the river, sort of northern suburbs had that was probably a little bit different to what was happening south of the Yarra River. There, I'm thinking La Femme and bands like that were they'd come out of the Sharpie sort of movement, had a different sort of sound, more of almost a glam rock sort of slash punk.
Yeah.
And I think Dolores talks a lot about La Femme and Shane
Yes,
in
yeah.
the book.
Trevor,
But, yeah,
I'm going to shoot it at Trevor first and then back to Russell. Trevor, do you see, is there a difference between, in your mind, new wave and punk? If so, what is it?
As I always thought, new wave was more commercial and more, radio friendly.
I felt that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas the punk was, a little bit
Down and dirty and
not so mainstream, which is the way we liked it. That we weren't part of the mainstream,
right.
even though I wanted to be super famous, and that which meant selling your soul to the radio stations and the record companies to give us something that'll sell, But we were. Yeah.
It's almost like you can't. You guys know much better than I would. You can't be too much of an idealist in the record business, I guess. You have to kind of give and take with Big Brother, or however you can't just be totally how you want it to be. It seems like you always owe somebody something.
Well, the way we did it by releasing our own single and paying for it, we had total control. Nobody was telling us. So which changed the face of music, really.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And so we didn't have to do a demo that made it sound good for a record company to sign us up, because there was no way.
What do you think, Russell? New wave versus punk?
Yeah, I'd echo what Trev said there. I think that was probably more commercial aspect, probably new wave. I think I remember I was aware of the term at the time, but not something I particularly want to be associated with that term. I always sort of thought it was more in the punk sort of do-it-yourself sort of mode, what we're doing. And I think
I want to hear what you guys said. I always felt the same way too. New wave is more of a mainstream commercial, like a cousin of punk. Punk is like tough guy, and new wave is kind of like, candy coated.
I think you're right. And I recall back in the early days, there was a big record label here called Mushroom, and they decided to set up a subsidiary just devoted to punk bands called Suicide. They put out one album with a whole lot of Melbourne bands who signed on to go on the Suicide label. Lethal Weapons was the name of the album. It's a great album, by the way, but a lot of the Melbourne punks thought that was a bit of a sellout, sort of signing to a Mushroom subsidiary, and other bands wouldn't sign on that basis. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a great record, and people do what they need to do to get their music out there, and that was a way of promoting it to a wider audience. So why not? But for us, we just was pretty much do it yourself, and yeah, we better or worse, we made our own bed and we lay in it. So yeah.
And it's a lot of it is how it is today. No, not a lot, but people just their own websites, just not even dealing with the companies anymore.
Yeah,
Exactly,
do it at
yeah.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it tough for you guys to be punk rockers and influential punk rockers during the night, and then having to be like kind of regular Joes during the day and going to work? Probably, I'm thinking, all that's on your mind is playing that gig the next night. Was it tough having to balance those two? Trevor, what you want to start off?
Yeah, well, look, I was working for the government in a very straight sort of environment. And I remember, we were playing a gig that night. I'd be sort of psyching myself up for the gig during the day, to like going to play football. If you're a football player, preparing. I've got to do this chord here, and I'm going to play this. And
Thinking about everything except work, right?
Well, I was lucky it was a government job, and if you didn't want to work, you didn't have to.
Oh, okay.
They had 3 people for one job, so if you didn't feel like working, somebody else will do it. And I can't believe, those days are gone.
Yeah.
All those jobs have been privatised now. They're all,
Right.
all those government jobs are gone.
That's a whole other show.
Yeah, well,
Exactly,
right.
Right.
Thatcherism,
Yeah.
Reaganism. Yeah, they changed it all. But
Hey, Russell,
Yeah.
how about you? Was it tough for
Well, I
you?
was in,
Russell?
yeah, a bit like Trevor. I had a job in the public service at the time, and I lost that job because I didn't know where the punk thing stopped and the job started, and I was sort of that became an issue, and I was sort of given an ultimatum to either clean up
You
my
guys
act
were
or-
punks, weren't you, boy?
Yeah, well,
You played it.
I chose the path of giving up the job, and for whatever reason. But anyway, that was at the time. I had a trouble sort of separating the two worlds. But I think later on things got a bit more serious. As I said before, had a family, expanding family, and responsibility. Sort of you take things a bit more seriously, and you really got to knuckle down. And unfortunately, the band, something had to give, and it was the band, really. So
I may have touched on this with you, if I recall, last time, Russell. So we'll start with Trevor and then back to you. But Trevor, even though we all have our we're big boys now, do you think there'll always be a part of you that has that punk mentality? Somewhere always sitting it up there in your brain, like you'll never truly get rid of your punk attitude?
oh, look, I think I appreciate punk more now than I did then, because
Really?
I played Anarchy in the UK in the car, full blast after a bad day at work.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful song.
Have either of you guys ever seen the Sex Pistols? I think it was from 2000. Anyway, the full hour concert is on YouTube. They played somewhere in England. Oh, and when they played Anarchy, I mean, it's just you get goosebumps. Just,
they strike up the opening chord, and it's
even
just
that,
fabulous.
yeah. Oh my God.
I was lucky enough to see the Sex Pistols when they toured Australia in 1996 with with Glenn Matlock on bass, and look, it wasn't the original. Well, it wasn't the back in the day, but it was still fantastic. And they they blew the place, Festival Hall. They blew it apart. It was just fantastic. So,
What do you guys think of Sid Vicious? Was he more just kind of? I know that. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. Sid Vicious took whose place?
Glenn Matlock.
Yes, Madlock, right? Glenn Madlock. Thank you. I mean, he was obviously a musician.
yeah.
What do you think? What do you think of Sid Vicious?
Oh, I think he suited the band down to the but he could play.
Couldn't
bass.
play a lick, right? From what
Image-wise, he was perfect fit image-wise, but musically, I think they sort of started to lose it. I think Glenn Matlock wrote most of the original songs. There was only a couple that wrote after he left the band, and I think famously they said he was followed because he liked the Beatles, but I don't know if that's true,
Yeah.
true or not. But it shows up in a lot of his music, and yeah, Sid Vicious, he was the real deal in terms of living the
Living the
walking
life.
walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, there's people here sort of distraught when he died. I remember people getting tattoos and all sorts of stuff. I kept a scrapbook for all the cuttings of all the court case and what have you. It was quite a big thing. But yeah, looking back, if you just judge him on the music side of it, no, he wasn't up to spec. But
Yeah. But then,
image-wise,
like
he
you
was.
said, the image was perfect.
Yeah.
Was there anything within the Melbourne punk scene that you guys saw that made it unique to other punk scenes, or pretty much is punk? But was there something, you know what I'm saying, that Melbourne stood out? Something, you know?
Yeah, good point.
It's hard to say because we didn't really get up to Sydney and listen. Or we did go up to Sydney and listen to some punk bands up there, and that's why we went up to Sydney, because X released a record.
Yeah, band called X, not to be confused with the American punk band X. This was
Okay.
Australia had their own band X, which were an excellent band.
And we loved their record so much we drove all the way up to Sydney to see them play.
Pretty much, yeah, that's right, we did. But in terms of what made Melbourne special, I don't know.
Well, like if you had 5 punk bands and one of them was from Melbourne, would you be able to pick that out, do you think? Put it that way.
There was people in other capital cities doing similar things, but
Yeah.
I think Melbourne probably overall was sort of more influenced by the art scene, I suppose, and a lot of the things that came out of the scene. But it was a pretty diverse scene. But I don't know if there was a particular Melbourne sound. Everybody had their own sort of take on punk, I suppose. And but could I pick a Melbourne band? Maybe. Yeah, I think St Kilda was like the magnet. Everyone was drawn to St Kilda and the ballroom, and that was, a big part of the Melbourne scene. Other states didn't really have that, that I know of, but they might have had particular places. But certainly Melbourne, it was all going off at the ballroom. That was the place to be. And then all the international started coming there as well. They'd heard about it, and we got to see a lot of those bands as well.
I was just going to say, Russell mentioned we did a couple of reunion gigs.
Oh yes, okay, good.
And it seemed like after we broke up, the legend grew. And when we did reunion gigs, it was packed out. We had people there who'd never seen us before. So the word got around about this band that broke up called Zed Cars. And when we did these reunion gigs, we had to do 2 because we're both sold out. And we're thinking, geez, what's going on here? A
very silly rhetorical question, but how did that feel? Getting that response.
Oh, because we hadn't played for so long. It was pretty nerve-wracking.
It was, and I recall they weren't great gigs, like in terms of what we were able to produce wasn't great, but it was well
we did
received,
rehearse.
so,
We did.
Now, I'm sorry. How many years after Zed Cars originally broke up were these reunions again?
I can tell you that. I've got a list of gigs here.
I'd say 2 years.
83 we did those 2 shows at the ballroom.
So and
we would have been 2 years after we broke up.
Yeah.
Had you
2.5 years.
Did you think you guys sounded better after 2 years, with 2 years off, or were you pretty much sounding like the Zed Cars, like you expected to? You had 2 more years experience is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. We're a bit rusty. I didn't particularly think we played that well on those shows, but we had a bass player who hadn't played with us before. That was Steve Fazizi from the Virgins and Little Murders. He played bass there, but I mean they were good gigs, and they were well received. But I don't know. I think we played better shows at various times. I suppose. They might play anyway. But.
Yeah. Well, guys, I mean, in closing, I touched on this earlier. First of all, I mean, I can't thank you guys enough for giving me this time. I just, as a music lover, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you sharing all that you've been through with this important band, the Zed Cars. I mean, you really did. You were right there at the forefront. And how does it feel? I mean, knowing that no matter what happens anymore or since, you guys were so influential in the Australian punk scene and even by ripple effect, you know, throughout the world. It's Trevor, why don't you try to put it in words for us first, and then Russell, we'll let you go.
Look, it was an exciting time, and Melbourne, Australia will never have that scene again, or that, and we were just at the right place at the right time at the right age, and I considered myself very lucky to be part of it, and I'm glad I could have put a little bit of input into it musically. So away to you, Russ. What do you reckon?
Russell Street.
No, yeah, I'll agree with that. I think, yeah, it was, to me, it was a bit like a whirlwind. It was all, as I said before, it was all happening, and only when you look back, you think of, yeah, okay, that was pretty special at the time. It did feel great to be a part of something bigger than yourself, and it was a movement. It was a scene, a community. You know, that was really, really important. I think in those days, I was really looking for something like that to connect with, and I think that really provided that for me. But interesting, when the single was re-released in 2020, the guy from the record company in Canada told me, oh, we sold copies in Japan, Brazil, Russia. And I mean, how do people even hear of a little band in Melbourne, Victoria from 1980? How do they know that they want to buy a record like that? So to me, that blew me away, that people would even know about us, and let alone wanted to buy the record. So yeah, it makes you feel like you've achieved something. Yeah.
Yeah, and you both did. I mean, your band did. So again, I can't thank you enough, and it's been an honor talking to you guys, because you really were there, you know, for the first part and the so influential part of the Melbourne punk scene. And thank you both so much. I appreciate it. Both of you being Russell and Trevor.
Pleasure talking.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. And well, listen, I hope we're not done. I hope we can talk again sometime. I really would appreciate it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Classic pop culture. It's classic pop culture. Hosted by Steve, Ludwig, and Ludwig. It's classic pop culture. It's classic pop culture. Classic pop culture.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.